come here. You are big. You are big, big, big. Jesus Christ, I wish you guys could see this fight. Oh my God. That's a big, big fish. Big fish. Big, 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 big. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of GRAMPS Live tonight, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing, Fish Texas Kayak Trailers. Of course, we're recording for the Everything Kayak Fishing podcast tonight. Got a couple of cool guests. One you see often, that's always on the show. One we see often out in the wild at various bass tournaments. When we talk about people who support the sport, I wanted to really bring in one of the guys from one of the companies who, much like Toyota, you see everywhere in bass fishing. You see their support in Bassmaster Kayak Series, kayak bass fishing. You see them in overlanding outfits, campsites everywhere around the country. Of course, we're talking about Dakota Lithium. So tonight, let's welcome Mr. Stormy, Craig Stormy Storms, and of course, Mr. Chad Hoover, our good buddy over there at Kayak Bass Fishing. What's up, fellas? How are we doing today?
Storm, you go ahead first. I'll, age before beauty.
Here we go.
Already we're going to start, huh?
Hey, man, you're damn right.
Everything's good, man. Everything's good. We're just sucking up the sunshine of what's happening out in the country right now, waiting for it all to take effect and get this industry up and moving again, man.
Yeah, I bet. Now, we tried to do this like a week ago or so, but you were out busy doing something. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your adventures up north?
Oh, I've been ice fishing a bit. I got to get my fix in.
Yeah.
Ice fishing is my passion. I love it. It's been some. I was supposed to go to Canada, but I had such a hard time getting into Canada. So remember when they came out with the improved license? Is that what it's called?
Real ID.
You're supposed to be able to use it as a passport to get into Mexico and Canada.
Yeah.
Well, I'm supposed to go to Canada. I go to the airline. Air's 6:30 in the morning for the flight. Get to the desk. Show them the card. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Storms. You need a passport for air flight.
You think maybe this has got something to do with it?
Yeah. I don't know. They give me such a hard time. As much money as I make Canada, it's just crazy. They should have my name on there. Let Stormy in. You know what I mean?
He just wants to come catch the big fish. That's all.
I just want to fish, bro. I don't want to stay there. You know what I mean?
So have you caught any giants? It always amazes me that the number of big giant fish I see, big guys with little poles and little holes pulling like six. They just look huge. And how do you find them on those little bitty ass rods that look like pencils?
Dude, that's the whole. You know what I mean? That's the whole passion about it is catching those big fish. I mean, if you ever one of my YouTube is Clayton Schick up in Canada. That dude catches more big fish through the ice than I think anybody out there right now. He's just amazing. The size and quantity he catches the big fish, whether it be walleye or lake trout. It's just amazing, man.
It's amazing to me too, because my wife's from Minnesota. She knows about that stuff. I'm from Indiana, so we might get ice every now and then. But when I see somebody like in a little pop-up tent with a little hole, and then I scroll around and I see somebody that looks like they're in a log cabin on skis with toilets and stoves and beds, and they're just punching holes and catching fish. It's always it always makes me wonder. It's like, but it's everybody's got to have their way, their thing, and like you said, chasing your passion. When you catch giant fish out of a little hole, who am I to talk? Catching fish out of a little boat. Speaking of boats, somebody put up a video today.
What'd you do, Chad?
Chad really wishes he bought a boat. So if you guys haven't seen Chad's latest video, go over to Chad Hoover Fishing, and somebody might be writing.
My phone is blowing up right now. I got 135 unanswered texts about this video.
When somebody reads a title that says, I should have bought a boat. But we know if you were running a boat.
Let me show you let me show you the thumbnail for those that are watching. So this is the thumbnail.
What is that?
It says I was wrong.
But what? Oh, it's okay. It's 2 monitors. Okay.
Yeah, he's in the kayak. I'm basically saying, yeah.
He's in that giant boat kayak thing that makes Hans look like a midget. It's like, is he 4'3" or what? Anyway, so while I got you guys here tonight, literally KBF, Dakota Lithium. I mean, you guys have been associated with each other forever. Let's roll back in history a little bit, because I actually had to go back and find I couldn't even find pictures that were just you two clowns not clowning that I could use for a thumbnail. So I actually had to go to an iCast video just to steal something with you two together. But ever since I've been fishing KBF, Dakota Lithium's always been part of it. Let's go back in history a little bit, and you tell us how you guys first got together and kind of some of the history between Dakota Lithium batteries and kayak bass fishing.
You want me
Chad was go ahead.
All right. So I'll tell people all the time, there's 2 eras of kayak fishing growth, especially on the tournament side. And even though I'm trying to steer kind of away from the tournaments now, because I feel like we've got one good flagship series right now with Bassmaster behind it, and we shouldn't be, I voluntarily went away. Hobie went away for whatever reasons Hobie's going away for. And I feel like that we have the opportunity to focus on one series, right? This guy right up here will tell you that he stood on the stage next to me with the FLW thing. I actually walked off the stage. He had a big cheesy grin on his face and was like, dude, this is freaking awesome, dude. And I was like, well, I hope you enjoyed it, because this is the last time I'm doing this. And he's like, what? I'm like, I don't like this treating kayak fishermen like second-class citizens thing. And Bassmaster did that the first year, where they got on stage and they did the thing. And then they said, now it's time for the real weigh-in. And we were all like, whoa, what the hell? And so, but it's growing pains and it's evolution. And now that Steve Owens, who is a kayak angler and who's run events, is in charge of it, and they've got financial backing and they've got resources. If we want a professional kayak fishing series, it's crazy to compete with Bassmaster. We should all get behind it and push. And so for me, this title over here is Everything Kayak Fishing, is what I'm pivoting towards with KBF. Where can I support the sport? So you did a video a couple weeks ago or a week ago with Russ Snyder's talking about the Yak Attack piggyback prize pack, where I'm giving prizes to KBF members at all of the other events. And I actually had one clown message me and goes, I couldn't believe you're trying to piggyback on the efforts of everybody else. And I was like, well, I'm actually re-piggybacking, because they all piggybacked on what I did and what I built. So listen, young one, when you call, show a little respect for 1 and 2, know your history. I'm piggybacking back on people who piggybacked on me in the beginning, because every set of rules out there is 5% off of what I spent 10 years building in blood, sweat, tears, hard-learned lessons. They say the pioneers get the arrows in the back, and I got a freaking whole tribe in my back along the way, but people benefited from that. So now what I'm doing is piggybacking on that, not trying to do anything but give my members of my club, of our club, better opportunities. So the 2 eras are the Torpedo era and the Dakota Lithium era, and I'll explain that. We had a powder keg moment in kayak fishing where we blew up the whole tournament concept when Torpedo invested in offering the first ever $100,000 prize. And that literally lit the world on fire for kayak fishing tournaments. Craig and I became friends very shortly thereafter that.
2017, that was, right?
Yeah, 2018. And then we had conversations to where we talked about the strategy. And he was like, dude, I'm working with this company. I have to do the Craig voice every time people call me, because I think I do I'm like, he's like, dude, this is what we got to do. It's just like ice fishing. And he starts telling me all of this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, dude, you sound like me 10 years ago. But his compass was dead on. He was exactly right. And he's like, I'm working with this company called Dakota Lithium. And I'm like, I've heard of them, whatever. But there was a couple of like small battery companies that were making batteries for kayak fishing, but they were only making them for like a size 4 unit that was going to last an hour and all that kind of stuff. And Craig's like, dude, you're just like ice fishing. And here's how the batteries are working. And the kayak game is going to evolve. And I'm like, bro, you are preaching to the choir. Somebody has to position themselves to be in the place where, as the graphs get bigger, as trolling motors become, forward facing or forward bow mounted trolling motors become a big deal, forward facing sonar, all these things that people need to power, there's not a good option out there. And if you start putting lead acid batteries in fishing kayaks with all of this stuff on them, you're going to end up with a situation where you have thermal runaway, and some angler is going to melt their damn nose off their boat and die. And then everybody's going to freak out. So we've got to move towards lighter, more reliable, more thermally efficient power for fishing kayaks. And so people have no idea how much this guy behind the scenes has done to say, all right, dude, tell me what size you need. And not just me, but the entire Dakota Lithium team and the guys that are out there grinding and using it and developing not only the right size, but the right footprint and the right application and the right reliability. I have had a grand total of 1 Dakota Lithium failure in my entire existence of working with them. And that was actually this knucklehead right up here. He actually had a battery fail and basically called me and said, what do you do? I said, look, just go to the warranty page. All these clowns on social media, they're like, I can't get the warranty. I tried to call. You don't call. You go to the warranty tab, type on warranty and fill out the warranty. And it's a process, that little minimum wage person that answers the phone isn't the warranty person. The warranty is literally laid out when you buy it. It's got a warranty package inside of it. It tells you everything you need to know. So you're going to hear some people out there complaining, but it's just like the people that complain about everything, right? It's just they're the vocal minority. But there's a huge group of people that have Dakota Lithium products that beat the absolute crap out of them and then have no problems. And so with that being said, as we transition out of the Torqeedo era, and again, Torqeedo's still there. They still support me. They still support the series. They still do their thing, but they have a proprietary battery system that can't power all the other stuff that's out there. And I tell people all the time, Torqeedo is not a trolling motor. Torqeedo is an electric outboard. Yep. The motor you put on the front is a trolling motor. Torqeedo is the most advanced system on the market, but Dakota Lithium is the leader in reliable lithium, the best warranty in the game, the best spread of products, the best support of the industry, and they also support us. There's series that popped up, and there's other battery companies that have even come into the game. So I'll tell you this, even if you got sponsored by another fly-by-night lithium company, you got that because of Dakota Lithium, because Dakota Lithium made sponsoring kayak fishing tournaments popular, so it brought all of these other companies out of the woodwork. So you actually owe a debt of gratitude to this knucklehead up here and Dakota Lithium because they made it.
It's not only that we made it, Chad. Like I said, I just did another podcast with Thomas Allen. How many times, well, you've done it in your career. This would be your second time, but how many times in your career do you get to change the course of a whole industry? And that's what we did, brother. We electrified the kayak game, whether it's the graphs, trolling motors, you know what I mean? What we did was take that whole industry and bring it up 3 levels by electrifying the whole industry. You don't get to do that very many times in your career, and it was amazing. And we knew it while we were doing it. We knew we were doing something special,
So people don't realize how many hours of behind the scenes conversations that this guy and myself have had strategizing. Hey, dude, I'm going to start to taper this trail series down. I'm going to start to pivot more towards the challenges. The one thing that's going to be missing as Bassmaster grows is that there needs to be a very small entry level feeder system that gets people excited, that primes them up to either go to the Bass Nation regional stuff, the state stuff, up to the national championship and then fishing the Bass Nation Kayak Series. This isn't an accident. Like, we've talked about this stuff and strategized it and said, hey, what is my best service to the community? And we back ego out of it. Ego is what I did for a few years, you know, thumping my chest, trying to be the biggest, the highest payouts, the this, the that. But that's not what was good for the sport. Literally going to Major League Fishing, well, before Major League Fishing, FLW, and doing what I did, it was fun. It was a novelty, but it wasn't at that time good for the sport, in my opinion. And
we weren't there yet.
Had I not backed out of it, there would be them trying to fight with Bassmaster, and I'd be in the middle of it, and it would still be, you know, dividing up the base. And we need to have as many people show up to these events as possible. And no matter how few or how many I get, and no matter how many few or how many Hobie gets, when we had 3 series going and we're all competing for the same 512 to 515 anglers nationwide, it's just not sustainable. So it made sense for me to contractually back out. I had obligations with these guys I had to meet. I had obligations with other people. And I told Craig, like, we can't do a bucket of cold water over their head. So we're going to cut the trail down. Then we're going to cut it down again. And then we're going to pivot towards focusing on the virtual stuff, which is what I did in the beginning. And it's all kind of come full circle. Now, I made some mistakes along the way. I got it over my skis. I've apologized for it, but really, I apologize. But at the same time, I'm not sorry, because I was pushing the envelope. And if you push the envelope every now and then, you know, if you're racing real hard, sometimes you're going to end up in the wall. That's just how it works. And you can run at the back of the pack and be safe and take it easy and never get in an accident. Then the accident happens, you get caught up in it anyway. I'd rather be out front and clean air, just how I am. And that's how I'm going to stay. But now that we've got this evolution of the sport, like the video that I did today, there's a bunch of people that are like, oh, kayak fishing's too expensive. It's getting too much. It's not even a kayak anymore. Who gives a absolute shit? You know who gives a shit? The same people who bitch about forward-facing sonar, the same people who complain about everything, but they never use it. Yep. I challenge all of you guys, the next time you see somebody complaining about something, fishing, take the 5 seconds, take a deep breath, click on their profile, and scroll through all of their pictures of them on great walks on the beach with their girlfriend or boyfriend. Look at pictures of their pets. Look at pictures of their garage or their collector's set of bowling pins. But you're not going to see fishing pictures. Yeah. So it's just what it is. And I've had to learn that lesson the hard way of stopping listening to the vocal minority and serve the silent majority. And in a lot of cases, both of these guys up here have been my Chad, calm down, come back to earth, and the voice of reason. And this little triad right here has had a lot to do with moving in the direction. And here's something that I don't think people quite understand. I've had people say to me, why did Dakota Lithium get involved with Bassmaster, do this, when they could have put more into kayak fishing? And here's the answer to that question that's not intuitive, but it'll hopefully make more sense when I explain it. What people don't understand is if there is a battery sponsor like Dakota Lithium that is a Angler of the Year sponsor, title sponsor, what I call a premium sponsor of Bassmaster, and then you see that same sponsor on the kayak series, even though it was on the kayak series first and then it went to the other series, for the people that know that, it means that the kayak industry is viable enough that it's getting sponsored by a company that has the resources to sponsor Bassmaster. But then the perception is to the folks that from the outside looking in, holy crap, the kayak world is sponsored by the same people that Bassmaster, right? Bassmaster is sponsored by. And so to me, it creates that credentialing of what we're doing as a community for kayak fishing. It creates that correlation between the two. And it doesn't make it look like, well, the Bassmaster series has got these premium sponsors. And I'll look at the kayak kids with the pat on the head. They got them cute little sponsors by, whatever. And so the part that people are missing is the vision that this dude up here has put together, has executed, and has sold to. Look, I'm going to say it, and I'm probably going to get me in trouble. I'm probably going to get Craig in trouble, but I just got to say it. Like, this dude represents a company that is located in the Pacific Northwest. They don't understand and didn't understand. Let me rephrase. They didn't understand bass fishing.
Yep.
This dude sold the company on it, got them to invest in it, got them to double down and then double down again and then double down again, and has been driving product innovation, has been driving the support of the sport. And what I think people don't understand is we have to support those companies that are supporting the sport, because if we don't, they don't get their return on investment, and then they pull their support. When you have that level of support and you see them going both, in one series, then over to the other series, and then up to, it shows that they're dedicated to the sport of fishing, not just the niche of kayak fishing, not just trying to be the end all be all with the Bassmaster Elite Series, but a vertical integration in our sport. And to me, I think a lot of people miss that when they think, oh, Dakota Lithium could have put all the money they put into Bassmaster into kayak fishing, blah, 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 blah. And as much as we like to break our arms, patting ourselves on the back, that's how big kayak fishing is, we're still a niche of a niche. Fishing is the sport. Kayak fishing is a sub-sport, a subset, a niche of that, right? And so to me, what I also love about what Craig has done is by taking that sponsorship level, and this is something that he's never going to break his arm patting himself on the back about, but I'm going to. When he went to the top levels with Bassmaster and negotiated the sponsorships, he gave himself a seat at the table. And by giving himself a seat at the table, we all have a seat at the table.
Yep.
Because Craig gets to be not only the Dakota Lithium advocate at Bassmaster, but he's also started out with and is invested in and is one of us. So he's at the table lobbying for kayak fishermen with bass because he understands us. He can basically reiterate what Steve is saying. He can explain to the folks that don't understand kayak fishing what we're about, how we're about, and all that kind of stuff. So I can only imagine that that's going to benefit our whole community because of his position. And he'll never say that. He'll never take credit for it. He'll never do any of that. He's a good dude that supports everybody. Lots of people be like, man, I've been texting Craig for 3 weeks and I ain't got an answer. Yeah, so has 800 other people. So he's just like me. And you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. But instead of just saying, I haven't heard anything, text him again. Squeaky wheel gets the grease. But guess what? You got his damn number. Name a other premium company out there that, just like I'll say the same thing about myself, breaking my arm, pat myself on the back. Name another person that represents a company that big that you can call, text, or talk to on the phone. And even though it might not be quick for either of us, we're available and we have our finger on the pulse and we're listening to the people. And this dude took what we did with Torqeedo, realized we need to go to the next step, and Torqeedo could not service that niche. And I told them, listen, you can't service the need for graphs and this and that and the other, and they need to be separated anyway, which is what I just covered with that whole C Clear Power video, is now that we've gotten into better electronics and better power and all that stuff, now we got to start thinking like people who have these premium products. You can't run a 12-gauge wire from your trolling motor to the front to the back of a boat and then expect it to perform. You can't have all your stuff hooked up to one battery and then expect not to get interference on your graph when you key your trolling motor in or when spot lock adjusts and all that other stuff. But Dakota Lithium, when you look at the price per amp hour and the warranty that you get and the SKU mix that you've got, there's nobody even close. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm going to do now is shut the hell up because I've said my part. I want you to ask this guy about how he saw this stuff. You know what I'm saying? From the outside looking in as a Yankee up there in the North Pole, who's primarily an ice fisherman, and then decided to call a knucklehead like me out of the net. He called me. Hey, dude, listen, I got this idea. And I was like, I thought somebody was pranking me from the Navy. You know what I'm saying? Like one of my old Navy buddies was pranking me like they're having this like Sicilian like mob boss. Hey, Joey, you need to get over here and watch this, okay? The more I listen to him, the more I realize, man, we're like kindred spirits. This guy gets it. He explained to me how ice fishing is as a community, how kayak fishing is as a community, the things that are similar, the things that are different, and literally said, here's where we need to go, and he's been dead on. So, Craig, the floor is yours, my friend. I'm going to take my hat off to you to say we wouldn't be where we're at. KBF wouldn't be where it's at. Bassmaster wouldn't be where it's at. The whole sport wouldn't be where it's at if it wasn't for you. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you, brother. You know I love you. So coming out, we went 2017. Bo and I went to the ice show in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minneapolis. Coming home from that ice show, I called Chad because I've been researching where else could these things go. So we had at that time we had the 10 amp hour and we had the 170 amp hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was, there wasn't a whole lot in the middle, you know? And but thankfully at the time a 10 amp hour could run a graph for multiple days because the 7 just came out from Humminbird. That was like the first new digital fish finder that came out that year. And so I called Chad. We talked and talked and talked and talked as Chad does. And, you know, we came up with a plan, you know, and we decided to, you know, I talked them into sponsoring KBF. And I wasn't very good, but I competed probably for 3 years on every single tournament that Chad ran. At one point, I was doing KBF and Hobie because there was the only 2 then, really. And I was doing every tournament that both of them had just to show the batteries off, just to bring the product to the guys so they could understand it. Because it was a perfect thing for kayak fishing. And I kind of felt and knew that the kayak market was going to take off. And good, bad, or indifferent, we're kind of suffering for it now. But COVID just blew up the kayak industry. You know what I mean? We're paying the price for it now because it was kind of artificial. But, you know, that just made the awareness and made everything go. And like I told Chad before, we electrified that whole landscape. We went from the 10 amp hour. Then we came up with the Vortex, which was 5 10 amp hours Michael came up with a spider web of cables to hook all 5 10 amp hours together. Then we came up with the 54. Then the 100. When the 100 came out, that changed everything for everybody.
Huge,
you know what I mean? You know? Because then we could put the bow-mounted trolling motors on the front of the yaks, and we had 100 amp hours of power to run the trolling motor. So we could do in the beginning, we were doing 13, 15 miles in the kayak with a bow-mounted trolling motor. And that just, you know, you had your Torpedo in the back, but Torpedo was a lot of money back then.
Yep.
And 100 amp hour battery and a 12-volt trolling motor, you still had propulsion and you could still move around in the water. And that just changed the game for everybody. You know, it just changed the game for everybody. And I credit every good thing that's happened to me and Dakota Lithium. I credit with Chad because he started us. He believed in it. He saw the vision that I had. And we had the same vision, moving everything forward. And, you know, look where we are now, forward-facing sonar on kayaks.
Oh, it's crazy.
You know, think about it, bro.
I mean, I remember because, you know, as a disabled veteran, and this is one of the things that we talk about to a lot of people, at the time I was part of the Old Town Pro staff, and that autopilot changed the game for me. You know, being able to not have to worry about relying on my knee going out or my shoulder giving out if I'm trying to paddle. Sure, I would save some of that juice to get back if something happened, but being able to drop that 100 amp hour battery into that autopilot it changed the way that I was.
That 100 amp hour was perfect for that autopilot,
it was great.
bro.
And I mean, I have a boat that I never use because I can't really walk around it, because if my knee folds on me, I'll fall out of the damn boat, you know?
Yeah.
I keep it for my kids to take my grandbabes out. But for me, the kayak is the perfect way. Low profile. I can get anywhere I want. And it was nice. And then nowadays with the 2 kayaks I have, the PWR 129 with the NK 300 on the back with a 36 volt 60 amp that keeps me juiced all day long, or the XTR that I'm rigging up with 135 amp for my XI3 scoping boat. You know, I can take me and another friend out and go, and we can be on the water all day long without the fear ever of even running out of juice, as long as we're not running on high like all day long. But I mean, it's crazy. Go ahead.
It's just, go ahead.
I got something to add before we get too far away from it that I thought about while you were talking about this whole thing. Let me tell you another thing that Craig committed to. And I said, look, man, I'm going to be honest with you. If you sponsor KBF and 3 years from now, you've only got a 10 amp hour and 170 amp hour battery, you are going to waste every nickel you put into this thing. And he committed, we'll have 100. We're going to have a 50. We're going to have a 60. We're going to go to 2436. Like road mapped it. And none of this existed at the time.
Yeah.
And on top of that, along the way, not only did he pioneer the reliability of Dakota Lithium, he also fought the good fight on the back end. When PowerPole came out with the Charge, it didn't work well with lithium. But it didn't work well with lithium because they didn't understand it. So Craig's on the phone with the engineers explaining to them how, dude, this is how power works. You guys got to freaking, and I saw the emails and he would call me red-faced. I could tell from his voice, dude, I just spent 3 hours talking to these engineers, but he educated the entire sport. Yep. And he was the conduit between the bass boat industry, the kayak industry, and the manufacturers so that they could make the batteries work with the big boats better. And so that they could make them work with the kayaks better, improve the BMS technology and all of this stuff. So he's in the middle of all of that, playing the promoter guy, the ringleader, the house dad or crazy uncle, if you will, because he was at every event, but he was also renting the house. And like, you know, a couple times I say to the Dakota house, it's a thing. People call it the Dakota house. A couple times I tried to stay there and I finally said, look, Craig, I love you, bro. But I already went one round of living in frat houses called the U.S. Navy for 20 years. I can't do this shit. I'm going to stay by myself because, bro. But it was a thing. And he said to me, we will have all the power you need. But now I'm going to add one more thing to this. This is what people don't think about. When Torqeedo came out, there was no reliable lithium that wasn't developed by Torqeedo to run a motor. So because Torqeedo wanted it to be light and usable, they invested in that. So people kind of criticize Torqeedo for not having their batteries work with everything, but they spent hundreds of millions of dollars to develop their own lithium. And what they probably should have done is developed a commercially available lithium at the same time, but they didn't. So here's what I'm going to say also. If you're running a Newport Vessels motor, you have Craig Storms to thank for that. You have this guy to thank for it. And you can argue with me until you're blue in the face, until you run out of breath, but you're going to die wasted, short of oxygen and wrong, because they offer a battery now, but before Dakota Lithium, there was no battery alternative publicly that you could use for higher power applications. So Newport Vessels would have never got off the ground if it wasn't for Dakota Lithium. And they could argue with that as well. Everybody can argue it all they want to, but Dakota Lithium made bow mounts viable and created a boom in the market for that, created an alternative to stern propulsion. Even though that stern propulsion is really an electric outboard and it gets you there, it's not ideal for maneuvering. It doesn't have spot lock. It's not what a trolling motor does for 75 to 80% of the people out there. But
it's definitely for movement, point A to point B. You know what I mean? It's not for refinement.
But you would not have the Newport Vessel or the Newport Vessel version of a lithium battery if it wasn't for the market that was created by Craig Storms and Dakota Lithium and his investment in kayak bass fishing, the brand, and in kayak bass fishing, the sport, not just the brand, but the sport, and him having enough faith to believe in me to accomplish what I needed to accomplish and to me to believe in him. Because when you talk to somebody and they never bullshit you and they never lie to you, you have a tendency to believe what they say. And so that was how our relationship started. And he committed on the phone on a drive back from an ice show with the guy on the guy that needed to commit to it. So I got Bo with me right here. So Bo, we're going to make this stuff right. I'm like, he's like, absolutely. And dude, they've done it. They've actually gone so far as that this is not just a saying. And I came up with it on a phone call with Craig, and he's like, dude, what did you just say? I'm like, dude, it powers my passion. And it's evolved, but that was my initial thing of saying, like, my cameras, my motors, my batteries, charging my stuff to create content when I'm out camping, everything I do, run this right here, the lights in this camper. When the power's out at the campground, it runs off of Dakota Lithium. I'm like, hey man, you got any of them original 100 amp hours out? So I took the crap lead acid batteries that they stick on an RV when you get it, and I put my Dakota Lithium on here, and I've never had a problem. When we got iced out 2 weeks ago, everybody at the campground's got no power, and you can't run generators after 10 o'clock because of quiet hours. I'm over here with my PS 2400, like watching TV. I'm doing all the things. I got an electric heater running off of it. It literally doesn't just power my actual passion. It powers every damn thing. Yeah. So none of that stuff would be possible if this dude wouldn't have had that vision and understood it and got in there and was tenacious about it and got on the road. I can't tell you how many times he's called me. Yeah, I got an 18-hour drive to get home, or I got a 20-hour drive to get home. And I'm just like, more power to you, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's like KBD traveling all over the dang country to go. I'm just like, oh, man, there's some dudes putting some miles on the road.
Dude, I put 80,000 miles on in 1 year.
I couldn't even
traveling for kayak. 80,000 miles in 1 year. Yeah. But, I mean, you think about that back then, Chad. You know, we had the crew. We were camping. You know what I mean? We would go to all the campsites. It was work, and we hustled our asses off to make it happen. But it was something you'll never forget because it was the time of times. You know what I mean?
It was so bad. It was so bad at being good that people started to think that the Dakota Lithium anglers were cheating because they were all staying together and all this other crap. And I'm like, no, let me give you another way of looking at that. Anybody that does well, Craig picks up the phone and calls them and goes, you want to be on Team Bonafide and our team Dakota Lithium? They're like, yeah. And it didn't matter if they were in a Bonafide, a Hobie. That's the other thing that he did really smart. Yep. He did not have a particular brand loyalty. He had some Hobie people, some Bonafide people, some Old Town people. You know what I mean? He had a really balanced crew. But if somebody did well and they earned recognition, he would offer them a slot on the Dakota Lithium team. So when the team has got the biggest and best and baddest hammers in the game, of course they're going to win more. It don't have anything to do with staying in the Dakota house. And there was actually one rumor that, so Craig goes and he hires a guide the week before and blah, blah, blah. Yes. And let me tell you how stupid that is. Let me just tell you how stupid that. So if you ever made your mouth up to say that, or if you heard it and repeated it, let me tell you how freaking stupid you are. Most of the people that hang out in the Dakota house are better fishermen than the best guide on the lake that everybody went fishing at. And you can kiss my butt if you think I'm wrong, because those people that are in that Dakota Lithium house are some of the best anglers in the world. Not best kayak anglers, not best kayak tournament. They're some of the best anglers in the world. So they don't need Craig Storms to go fishing with a guide to come in and be like, all right, guys, so here we do. Here's the deal. What you guys need to do is, that's silly, first of all.
So silly. So silly.
Of all, a guide takes you out to catch fish 99% of the time, not to catch big fish. They just want you to catch a bunch. And the people in the Dakota Lithium house are fishing for big fish. They're trying to win the tournaments. And you better believe they'll step on each other's throat to do it too. So there's the rumor, sheer information. Go look at the heat map of where they fish, and they couldn't be. Russ Snyder's will be at the south end of a lake. Christine Fisher will be at the north end of the lake. Eric Siddiqui will be like, wake up late, get on the lake at 10 o'clock in the morning and go out there and win the damn thing. You know what I'm saying? Very few of them, if ever, fished together. And when they did, it was no different than two people who traveled together to fish and shared a hotel room that end up at the same boat.
Right, exactly.
Well, and how many times do you see Russ at some campground in his truck with his batteries under his seat that's powering, his little campsite to recharge his stuff because he's miles away from everybody else. I remember my first KBF at Kentucky Lake, and it was like everybody in the chat, oh, Russ Snyder's this and that, and he's got his, a guide and he's got fish tied up everywhere. And then, oh, I'm sorry, Jeff Little's out following him around with the camera documenting the entire thing. And Russ is just out there smoking him, doing what Russ does. But that's how champions are. I mean, find me another guy that's as down to earth and lovable like a damn teddy bear than Russ Snyder's. It's hard to do. Maybe
he does have a propensity of missing signs going into a slot. You know what I mean?
But I mean, you find me a better dude. I mean, and
there is
the same way. They're all, everybody you have fishing with you are just incredible people first. And yeah, I can understand why you went after him.
Casey Reed. Yep. Casey Reed is probably one of the best human beings there is on this world, bro. You know what I mean?
Number 11. Yeah, 100%. I mean, I was honored to be on the pro staff with him, even though I wasn't fishing at the level that they play at. But you just talk about being able to go up and talk to somebody and give you the shirt off his back, and just the nicest guy. One guy I root for, no matter what tournament he's fishing, what boat he's in, regardless of whether I'm in an Old Town Bonafide or whatever. Just one of the best people out there. Him and Brian Nye and a few others like that.
Right. Yep.
I'm gonna tell you a quick Russ Snyder story that when it happened, I mean, it pissed me off. I had smoke coming out of my ears. But when I backed up from it and looked at it through the lens of Russ Snyder being Russ Snyder's, it's a story that people need to know, because people have these perceptions of what people who consistently fish that well are like. So we're going into the 10, and we have this event called the 10 Invitational. And Russ has become friends with this guy named Joshua Sharp. And Josh went to Florida with like his last couple $100, sleeping in his truck, next to Russ sleeping in his truck. And when I say they were sharing like snack packs of crackers, I'm talking about they were like, if you ever watched a reality survival show where they got like 5 things and they're like, you take 2 and I'll take, this is what this scene was like. And Russ was giving him what he had to make him be able to eat and survive. It was crazy. We get down to the last day of the 10 Invitational, which, by the way, is a $3,000 or $4,000, I think, to the amount that you won. And you win your way into the 10 house, so you pick up $1,000. By guaranteeing your spot, you pick up $1,000 if you win the 10 Invitational. So Josh, who has driven down there, who's down to his last few dollars, and his gas tank went out on his truck, and we all we pulled the bed the bed off of the truck and changed the gas fuel filter in the parking lot of the 10 house after this fact. But before that, Russ was also helping get him to the water and stuff. Anyway, the dude was destitute down to his last few dollars, but this is how crazy this sport is, where you're like main veining this stuff. He calls Russ up and says, hey, man, look, I've got this many inches. We had turned the leaderboards off, and Russ had just entered his last 3 fish.
Yeah.
So I look at it and go, damn, Russ won the event. I look at the thing again, and then I was sworn to secret. I swore I would never tell this story publicly, but I'm going to tell it to you guys. I then look at the leaderboard again, and Russ is in second place. So I think, okay, well, I had people off-site judging. Amanda was running judging back then. I'm thinking maybe a fish got DQ'd or something. I'm going to ask the story at the thing. Well, I find out that Russ went in and deleted one of his own fish to drop himself down to second. And by the way, there's no prize for second place in the 10 Invitational. It's you win your way in. So he's going to win the 10 Invitational and take home that money. And he's going to win the $1,000 for going in the house. Because if you win the 10 Invitational and you're in the 10, you get another big ass trophy. You get the money, you get the accolades, and you keep somebody else from making it in. He deleted a fish so his buddy could make it into the 10 house, and so that he could get that money, and so that he could have enough money to get home on and to survive on. And he did that. Josh didn't ask him to do it. Russ saw that he was beating him and did it and wasn't even going to tell him. Like, I called him out on it and said, dude, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I kind of pulled him to the side as a tournament director and like chewed his ass. Hey, bro, this is not what this is about. This is the 10. This is not a charity tournament. You're not letting somebody in. He was like, sorry, dude, like in the standard Russ thing. But he took it on the chin to let a buddy get in who needed the money, and he didn't care about the accolades. He cared more about helping a friend. So through the lens of, at the time, I was mad. I was pissed off. I thought it was BS. When I backed up as a human being and looked at it, I was like, that's pretty damn stand up that you are willing to not get the limelight, lose an event that you by all rights had won, so that your friend can make it into the event and can make enough money to, you know, be good.
Yeah. It was pretty special at the time when he did that. I agree.
It was. But I had to play my part as a tournament director going, this is bullshit, you know, playing the game of like, don't manipulate the standings. But I get it. He did what he did for a friend, and it showed that that dude's character and heart are what everybody that knows him believe it to be. And he didn't go out and tell the story after the fact. Nobody did. It stayed kind of a secret. And but that's the kind of dude he is. You know what I'm saying? Like, one more quick story. He decides to let some people win the trail event. But I mean, I've won too many events. So I'm going to try to go fish Wheeler to give you some love for Wheeler, since it's Wheeler and Gunnersville. At 10:30 in the morning, he calls me up, man, I'm sorry. I just can't really get the bite dialed in. I'm going to drive back to Gunnersville an hour and 15 minutes. And I've got a spot that I think I can catch him. Goes and fishes gets there at 11:30, gets on the water at 12. And wins the freaking event.
Yeah, of course.
So if you ever got any question about whether or not that dude works hard and grinds and puts in the time, but is also to his core a genuine dude, you don't have to question.
He's a genuine dude. And that just, I mean, how destined was he, you know, because with the results that he had in the West Coast when he started, he could have folded and given up. And to come to the kayak scene and to do what he has done in the kayak scene, to be that dominant for that long, it just, you know, it's pretty wild, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
Watching these guys trade blows, you know, Angler of the Year, you know, champion for whichever event, you know, over and over and over, you know, it's fun watching the battles that go on from, you know, the giants of the sport. That's for damn sure.
I'll tell one more Russ Snyder story. I'll tell you the story of how the first time I ever heard the name Russ Snyder. So I lived in Nashville, and I'm fishing the KBF TN event. The club director, Daniel Morse, at the time had said, hey man, come out and fish this event. So I was like, all right, fine. I'll go fish the event. I get out there. I go out there, and I flat out lay the smack down, and within like 2 hours, I got like 93 inches on Old Hickory Lake, which is a lot. I think I'm like, I got this one. Well, they call me back. Hey, you didn't put the contrasting sticker on your fence. So we got to DQ your fish. I'm like, all right, whatever. So they DQ my fish. I go fish and put up like another 90 something inches. But I go to load my fish and I look at the leaderboard and it's got 98, 97 3/4, 98 1/4, something like that inches. And it says Russ Snyder's. I'm like, who the fuck is Russ Snyder? So I called the tournament director. Hey man, who the hell is Russ Snyder? I'm out here thinking I'm, you know, big balling this thing, and this dude's got 5 inches on me or 6 inches on me. And they're like, oh dude, that guy's a hammer. That guy's beat us, that, you know. So what people don't understand is if you fish the KBF TN series for cast in Tennessee, you're fishing one of the hardest tournaments to win in the country with just a couple 30, 40, 50 people in it, because that's where there is a sleeper cell of like kayak fishing monsters that live there.
That is the nucleus of the whole sport right down there, man.
Crazy, dude. And you know, I'll give myself a little bit of credit. I was a big part of the powder keg moment by setting Hook One up in Nashville and making that a big deal. And we kind of had a lot of local stuff that was doing really well. And you know, I'm a founding member of KBF TN and all that good stuff. But dude, the first time I met Russ, and by the way, he showed up an hour and a half late to that event and got on the water and went out there and caught every fish on a buzz bait. He wasn't even like safety fishing. He just went out with a buzz bait, put his motor on like 3/4 and was just boom. And just, I was like, so that's how I met Russ Snyder. I'll be straight up with you. I didn't even enter my fish after that. When I saw his like 98 or whatever, and I had already got 5 of my fish DQ'd, so my name's way down at the bottom of the leaderboard. I didn't even re-enter my fish. I was like, yeah, I'm good.
I'm done.
And then I met him at the boat ramp, and I was like, dude, what the hell did you put up 98 inches on like what Old Hickory with? Oh, buzzbait. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah. I figured I was fishing all the spots between other people because I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. So he's giving everybody else the benefit of the doubt and fishing around everybody so he doesn't mess up their spot, catching more fish than anybody else and doing it with a damn buzzbait.
Sounds about right.
Wow.
Sounds about right.
Where did we go? What was the Derby in Ohio? Remember that the first couple of years? Where was that? It was 2 lakes in Ohio, right?
East West Harbor. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And dude, I've got Russ stories. Dude sends me a drop pin. Hey man, I just want to make sure this is good for the national championship. And I was like, you are going to be. I've got an ulcer named after Drew Gregory. I have another one named after Russ Snyder's after 3 or 4 national championships. I'm like, how in the absolute world do you think that's in bounds? He's like, well, the rules say any body of water connected to Kentucky Lake, yada, yada, yada. So I went up one river. That river runs into another river, and then I went up that river. And I was like, so I call Amanda. Like, I can't change the damn rules 2 days before the event when he spent 10 days pre-fishing and scouting and grinding. And so Jeff Little comes up to me. Do you mind if I follow Russ and film what he's doing for the national championship? I said, no, please do. Because then when he wins this summit and everybody wants to complain, it's all on video and they see what he did. But Russ is so damn good, just like Drew, that tournament series, like myself, have had to change the rules to box him in.
Yeah.
So when you call somebody a game changer, sometimes, 99% of the time that shit's overused. Drew Gregory and Russ Snyder are actually game changers. They didn't just change the game by winning a bunch of events. They changed the game by the tournament series, changing the play-in field to box them in, and then they still go win. So, yeah.
And we had this conversation. These people in a different scenario, in a different genre, but criticizing people for playing in the gray area, right? Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what they did. They were in the gray all the time, always pushing, not breaking the rules, pushing, finding out how far they could go, not being safe. You know what I mean? And to get detriment for that makes absolutely no sense. If you're not playing in the gray area, you're not doing it, bro. You're not doing it. You know what I mean? That's my theory.
I'm actually going to contradict you here. I know what you're saying, and I agree with the spirit of what you're saying, but let me tell you what I told somebody and the analogy that I use to explain it. You know that really good catch where the football player grabs the ball with one hand, he's bringing it in, and he just drags his toe, right? That's just as much a touchdown as a summit that catches it standing up in the middle of the field, boom, and goes like this, and you go, how did nobody cover him? But the one on the corner is harder. It's the better receiver. You don't see tight ends do that. Tight ends usually catch a crossing route or they're standing there wide open and they get the ball, right? But the guy that uses – so the field is 50 yards by 100 yards, right? If you count the 2 end zones, it's 120 yards, right? The whole field counts. So what I will say is that maybe in that one incident where Bassmaster had the weird rule that Drew exploited – maybe it was the gray area and it took a while to dial it in. But for my stuff, he didn't fence. He didn't color in the gray. It was black and white. We left too much white. You know what I'm saying? He used it. So they played 120 yards of the field. They played 50 yards of the field. They didn't play out of bounds. They weren't in a gray area. They were 100, at least for the KBF stuff. They have made me fix the rules because the black and white of the rules said you can do this. And so then I change it so that, but literally both of those guys have redefined the sport because they're willing to put in the work. They're willing to do the thing. I'll tell you straight up, after one of the national championships, somebody challenged Drew Gregory's finish. I had to paddle and motor a combination of 21 miles to prove he was in bounds.
Yep, I remember.
It took me a full day to do it, and I had to go backtrack it. But Drew's like, no, dude, it's good. I was like, bro, there's no way. He's like, it's good. Okay, now Joe, being the KBF partner at the time, I'm like, bro, the only way we're going to validate this is if I get out there and do it. So we held up the standings, the final results and the payouts, and I went and put in and went up this damn creek. And I'm not going to say where it's at because people are like, where was he fishing? Bro, I'm not telling you where he's fishing. That's not how it works. I, as a tournament director, go validate it. So I go down this damn river, up this other river, through this other river, and then you portage over a little bit of a beaver dam, beginning phases of a beaver dam, not a full dam, over that. Everything he did was legal.
Yep.
And I was like, all right, well.
And look, he put his money where his mouth is, right? Started his own series, doing what he loves.
Yep.
You know?
100%. 100%.
Yeah, you got to give him props for that, man.
Yep.
I tell people all the time, there's a Theodore Roosevelt quote that I can't just quote off the top of my head, but basically the gist of it is the man in the arena with the dirt on his face is the one that gets the credit, not the one sitting on the sidelines bitching. So the people that are out there doing it, whether I agree with them or disagree with them or whatever, it's just like there's a lot of stuff and a lot of decisions that Hobie made during the Hobie BOS. But I also gave them the benefit of the doubt. Is like all you clowns who are jumping on this bandwagon are the same ones that were blowing, the trumpet before, and you have no idea how hard this thing is to do. So shut up. Or at least when you open your freaking mouth, open it with reverence instead of being a jackass. You can say this should have been done better, but don't say it like you would have done. Oh, this is stupid. There's no way that should have been missed. You don't know. You've never done it. Shut up. Right?
Yep.
All the armchair quarterbacks that come back and say, oh, I would have never missed that. Yeah, because you would have never done it. You would have never done it. You're not putting your money where your mouth is. You've not done what I've done. Put my entire life savings into this thing. Risked everything twice. You've not done what Hobie did. You've not done what AJ did. AJ took a pay cut to be the BOS guy. And if the BOS goes away, now he's got to decide, what am I going to do for a living? He put it all on the line. Do I agree with the call? Absolutely not. Do I agree with the call with the bent board and all that? Absolutely not. But guess what? There were constraints that were in place that he had to live within. But the other part of it is he was in the arena. Okay? There's 2 or 3 people that have the right to criticize those people. The rest of the people should be like, damn, that sucks. I really hope it gets better. I wish they would have done a better job. But attacking the actual person who's doing the work is chicken shit.
Yep, it's lame. It really is. But I mean, and like you said though, the fact that we now have a place for everybody. The way I look at it, if you want to go be the best of the best, you go jump into Bassmaster. If you want to, go play and have fun, you hit up a kayak adventure series in KBF. It's like when you talked earlier about Bassmaster kind of being like the league. Well, that's what KBF has now become, a club of 12,000 people who can fish in charity events, month-long derbs. There's something for everyone. If you don't want the stress of fishing a tournament, you have challenges where it's you and the fish.
Right.
While we're raising money for Heroes on the Water and other veteran, whatever. That's what I love about fish shops and everything we do with Catch 22. That's me versus them, me versus my brother if we want the bragging rights. That's the beautiful thing about it. In kayak bass fishing, there's something for everyone. Whether you're running a little 10-hour power box like Stormy's got right there over his shoulder with your Garmin Striker 4, or a 60 amp hour 12 volt running 2 10-inch grabs like somebody else I know, that's your prerogative. But I've also got a paddle kayak that's got nothing on it. Go fish how you want to fish. But when you want to power your stuff, power with something that's got a good warranty, supports its people, And, you know, like I said, I was telling Stormy, it's like, oh, we need to get to talk about technology and this and that. But then I remembered what the topic of this live stream is. It's not batteries. It's the two guys who powered the change in kayak fishing. And that's these two guys right here with me. They made the difference in whatever your aspirations are, pro or no or regular Joe. We have what we have today in great part thanks to these two. And with that, gentlemen, I'm not going to keep you all night, so since I'd keep you for an hour, but I appreciate you taking the time and jumping in. Go ahead, Chad.
I'm going to say one more thing because I got to give this dude yet one more set of accolades. When I decided to pivot, like we're doing right now, I said, I need you on board as the title sponsor of the 10 because I believe the 10 is the most elite event in kayak fishing. Though I think the Bass Nation Kayak Series is the most elite series, when you run the gauntlet of fishing for 10 months, fishing all 30 days for that state challenge series to get the points, to then go to the Challenge Series Championship, to then finish in the top 10, and then fish against the other top 10 guys in the country to win the title of the Dakota Lithium KBF the 10 champion, that person who wins that event, that's the baddest man on the planet. If we have a pound per pound ranking in kayak fishing, you got 5 events you got to do well in Bassmaster that spread out all over the country. And I think it's amazing. I'm going to try to get to a couple of them. But that's 10 days of competition. You're talking about 300 plus days of competition to get yourself in position to go to the Challenge Series Championship, to finish in the top 10 standings at the end of the year, and then fish for 10 hours to beat out the other guys that are in the top 10. Bro, that's the most elite event in the game. And when I pitched that vision to him that we're going to get rid of the trail, we're going to make the Challenge Series the feeder to the 10, and then we're going to make that 10 the crown jewel of KBF and what we do. But tangentially, we're going to run these charity tournaments, these fun things to get people excited about the sport again.
Yep.
He's like, dude, I'm in. And that was all had to be said. And we're still investing. Yes, sir.
I still think we got to do regional.
Oh,
that was the best.
Oh, it's
that's
coming.
The best setup we ever had, bro.
Actually, you know what he said? Dude, I'm behind you. Whatever you want to do, dude, I got you. But you got to do the regions. So what did I do? I did the regions because actually Duke had been bending my ear on it. You had been bending my ear on it. People have been mad. But honestly, when I called him to say, I need you on board for 2025 for the title sponsorship, everything will lead up to it. He's like, I'm in. But you got to do regions, dude. You got to bring that back. When Casey Reed won that regional, dude, that was awesome. You know what I mean? And
we had it because it was consistent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ohio guys weren't fishing down to Florida. Florida guys didn't have to come up north. You know what I mean? It was the perfect congruency. Yep. There we go.
Thanks to you, we now have it. And I think we have the most and best balanced regions in the country because we didn't just draw lines and say these states go together and these states go together. We actually spent 6 weeks with the entire community and just kept massaging it. And we tried to square peg round hole states into a set number of regions in the beginning. And then when we backed away from that and said, let's just put together the best regions we can, the light bulb went off, the process got smoother, and now people are excited about it. So for this year, we're doing a baseline. For next year, we're going to implement the regions as a regional championship concept. And then in 2027, we'll actually have live regional championships in every region in the country, which allows you to compete on the state level. And if you don't want to go any further than that, great. But you qualify to fish on the regional level. And if you don't want to go any further than that, great. But then you qualify to fish on the national level. And so it all kind of goes together and dominoes. And again, even though we're pivoting, and I go to him and say, we need to do this, he's like, dude, I like it. I'll give you this, but you need to give me this. And he was the guy that said, you've got to do the regions. And so that was the impetus for starting the conversation again. And now that it's done, it was 6 weeks of pain. I'm not going to lie. No matter what we put up, people were like, argh. Now that we've got it up there the way it is.
Dude, how many texts did we go back and forth before we even sent it to anybody else to?
Right.
It was, I was like,
right.
I don't want these guys versus, but that's just the game we played before it even got out where the public can start then tearing it apart. But it was,
just think about when this gets back up to where it should be, that the champion of each region, okay, has a tournament, is in a tournament. Yeah. That's the goal, man. Yeah, that will be, you know what I mean?
So we're gonna have the beauty of that. We're gonna have a state angler of the year. We're gonna have a regional angler of the year. We're gonna have the overall angler of the year, and then that leads to the 10. And man, I'm not gonna extend this call or this discussion. Plus, some of this is staying secret until we reveal it. Right. But we have a new template for the 10. It's not some astronomical changes. The core 10 is the same, but we've got ways to add money to it, and we've got ways to add excitement to it that I think when we reveal it is going to blow people's minds. I really do.
Well, let's hope 6 months from now, everything's running on Trumpy gas and we get things going and the industry comes back and sponsors have money and everything's good again, bro. Let's go.
Yeah. Definitely going to make fishing great again. That's for damn sure.
Make fishing great again, Trumpy. Let's go.
So I'm going to let you boys go. Stormy, I will see you down at the Classic because I'm coming down to cover the event. Can't miss it. Chad, I will see you, of course, at the KBFNC. Both of you, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It has been a blast. Can't wait to do it again sometime. Ladies and gentlemen out there, have a great night. As always, get outside when you can and make some memories. One cast at a time.
Love you, Bocephus.